All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, thank you all for joining the English version of our Career Conversations panel. We have three amazing alumni who are going to share their experiences and how they have explored their careers with their English degree. And we are really excited to put this out there in front of you. Couple housekeeping things on the front end before we get started. We will be recording this session, so just so that you know that, and we will put this content out there so that you can watch it and engage with our awesome alumni that way. I know that our awesome alumni as well would be more than likely happy to meet with you as well as a student to learn a little bit about how they've navigated their careers. A couple of things on Zoom. Please use the chat function as you have questions for our awesome panelists. I have a few questions for them to get us started, but then I definitely want to leave plenty of time at the end for our students on board and anyone else to ask them questions. So please have your chat up and I'll be moderating that throughout. Please keep your video off other than our awesome panelists and myself, just so that they're front and center and we can give them the full attention that they need. And if you have any technical issues, please don't be afraid to use the chat. I will be doing my best as the moderator to help you and engage you throughout that process. So we are here to support you. So, and also keep yourself muted when you're not speaking to the panelists, and then same to our attendees, just so that there's no feedback in the recording. So now let's jump right in. I get the distinct pleasure of introducing our awesome panelists, Kayla Shock, Rachel Cullen, and Sophia Elisha. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves separately, learn a little bit about them, and then we'll dive right in. So Kayla, if you want to go first by introducing yourself, your title, degrees that you've received or that you're working on, and what you currently do for a living.
Hi, thank you, Danny. My name is Kayla Shock. I am a legislative analyst here at the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade. We're also known as OEDIT because that's a very long name to keep saying to everybody. I received a degree in English, rhetoric, and writing from UCCS in 2019. I also have a community college of the Air Force degree in transportation, but that's neither here nor there. And then, yeah, that's all I got. I'm really thankful to be here.
Thank you, Kayla. All right, Rachel, would you do the same introduction? Name, title, degrees that you've received or working on, and what you currently do for a living.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Cullen, and I am a high school English teacher in Academy School District 20. I received my bachelor's in English with an emphasis in literature in 2017, and then my master's in curriculum and instruction in 2018. And I'm currently working on my PhD in educational leadership, research, and policy. And I hope to have that done in the next year or so, hopefully. And aside from being a high school English teacher, I'm a part-time competitive gymnastics coach. So that also absorbs a lot of my time.
Rachel, what don't you do? That's awesome. You're doing so much. All right. Last, but certainly not least, is Sophia. Same introduction, name, title, degrees received, work on that you're currently working on, and what you do for a living.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Elisha, and I received my BA in English as well with an emphasis in literature. I'm currently working towards a master's in counseling from Naropa University up in Boulder. And my current role is as a program director for a nonprofit here in town called Converge. So my work focuses on the intersection of the arts and mental health, and my role is to create poetry and literature-based programming for high school students in our partner schools. It's truly my dream job. I feel like I really hit the jackpot in finding this role. So grateful to be here today.
Thank you, Sophia. And why don't you stay on? And I'm going to ask you our first question, which is what did your career pathway look like? How did you get from your English degree to where you are now? Just give us your story.
Yeah, so right out of university, I worked in nonprofit communications for about 3 years. I was then laid off during the early days of the pandemic. And I was just working at a coffee shop during that time. I met my current employer at that coffee shop where I had just a very chance conversation in which I quoted a line from Emily Dickinson that was really helping me just mentally make it through the challenges of 2020. And so that moment kind of like put me on the radar for this role. And then I applied and was hired after that. So in my story, in my experience, I got extremely lucky, but I think that my English degree also kind of made me the kind of person who could create their own luck. And so I was once I was in a situation, kind of was able to use my professional background and just who I was as a person, as someone with a background in an English degree, to end up in my current role.
Thanks for sharing that. I love that statement of your English degree feeling like you can make your own luck. I think that's really impactful. Rachel, how about you? Tell us a little bit of your career story.
So I remember telling my mom when I was in 7th grade that I wanted to be a high school English teacher. And I don't really know how I knew that, because at that time I had never even been inside a high school. I don't even know if I knew any high schoolers. I certainly didn't know any English teachers, but I was certain that that was the path that I was going to take. And that kind of just remained true all through high school. But I was not a very good student in high school and did not prioritize my education and did not put effort into that. So I didn't even start college with my bachelor's degree until I was 25. And I was already married with 2 children at that time. So I was a more non-traditional college student at UCCS. And I still really felt like I fit in, and I never felt out of place, even though a lot of my classmates were a little younger than me or having a bit of a different life experience. So the initial plan was to go through the traditional teacher licensure program and not have a bachelor's degree in English. But I quickly learned that going through that traditional program was not going to be an option for me, since I was a non-traditional student. So I learned about the alternative licensure program, which meant that I could have the privilege of getting my bachelor's in English. And if I could go back in time, I would do it this way, no matter what. And I would recommend this to so many different people, because most high school English teachers actually do not have a degree in English. And my degree in English really gives me so much more content knowledge, and that helps me be a much better teacher for my students. So I'm grateful that things worked out that way. I have been teaching English now for 5 years, and I primarily work with upperclassmen. I teach both advanced students and on grade level students. And I think the way that my path kind of was windy was really kind of beautiful. And I learned a lot through the pivoting that I needed to do in order to get to where I am. And ultimately, I do not regret anything that took place. And I'm so thankful that I ended up getting a bachelor's in English, even though that wasn't initially my plan.
Thanks for sharing that, Rachel. 2 things jumped out about your story. One is college isn't right for everyone at 18, right? So I love that you shared that you came at the time that was right for you to school. And then 2, a profession like teaching, we often think that there's only one path to get there, and there's many paths and many ways to get there, right? So I love that you shared those 2 things. All right, Kayla, tell us your career story.
Yeah, thank you. So similar, although I did start college right out of high school, I went through kind of a bumpy path my first 2 years. And so I actually took a break and joined the Air Force Reserves. And so I left for basic training right before my junior year. And so having that kind of commitment and responsibility kind of cleared my mind. And when I came back, I actually chose to major in English. So I wasn't an English major for very long, but it was kind of when I found my groove and like my happiness. When I graduated in 2019, I took a job with Altamar Foundation in Colorado Springs. If you've heard of the clock tower, that's who they're named after. And they have a fellowship program for recent graduate students who wanted to learn more about the nonprofit and philanthropic spaces. And it was really rewarding. I got to work on place-based grant making within rural Colorado for mental health for youth. And I also got to work in Southeast Colorado Springs for intentional grant making around diversity. And that was really awesome. I also worked on military affairs, and I also recruited for the fellowship. So it kind of gave me a breadth of experience that I could take anywhere that I wanted to go afterward. Then the pandemic hit. I still thankfully had my job, but I ended up deploying to the United Arab Emirates in 2020. So I was there for 6 months. And while I was, working 12-hour shifts, loading planes, I needed to figure out my next step when I got home. And so I found this job through the alumni network of my fellowship and applied at like 2 a.m., did my interview in uniform and met my boss, really loved her. And yeah, I've been here. My year mark is May 10th. So I love it a lot, get to see a lot of interesting things. I minored in political science, but didn't really think I'd work in government. So it's been a pleasure kind of just learning the ins and outs of our state government and what makes our budget work and everything like that. So it's been a wild ride, not one that I predicted, but I think the flexibility of my degree really helped me with that.
Networking is what I took from that, right? Your network, and you engaged your network, and those are intentional relationships you have built. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so question 2 is, what got you interested in pursuing a degree in English? So what was it about the English degree that really jumped out to you when you found it, even if that wasn't your intended path? So I'm going to start this one with Rachel.
Okay, cool. So as I mentioned before, I don't really know how I knew that I wanted to be a high school English teacher, but I have definitely always enjoyed reading and writing and speaking and listening. I really like talking. I think that these are skills that lend themselves to English majors, although some of us are more talkative than others. So initially, I wanted to be an English teacher because I enjoyed the content of English. But as I have kind of developed in that role, and as I look at the impact that I have on my students' lives, I really feel that this content area is one that is going to help all of my students succeed, regardless of what path they take after high school. And that is something that really makes me feel empowered. I know that the skills I'm teaching them in reading and writing and speaking and listening, and their communication skills and their logic and all of these important pieces, no matter what field they go into, because very few of them will become English majors, they can still apply that. And that's something that I think is really special about being an English teacher and what kind of keeps me in this area.
Those foundational skills that we all know are important for anyone to succeed, right? I love that, Rachel. Kayla, how about you? What got you interested in your English degree?
Yeah, so like I said, I had a bumpy start. Sorry.
Kayla, before you keep going, for whoever just joined us, if you could put yourself on mute, that would be appreciated. Thank you. There we go. I think we're good now. Go ahead, Kayla.
Okay. So I started college as a sport.
I need to tell you, otherwise I will be in on this tomorrow from 8 to 11.
Okay, sweet. So I started college as a sport management major. If you had asked 18-year-old me, I was going to do marketing for the Colorado Rapids for the rest of my life. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Big soccer fan growing up, still am. I did a year in the program and just kind of lost, not interest in sports, but just kind of that path. And I ended up taking business, or like English for business majors, and I really loved it. And I was like, I loved English in high school. AP language was my favorite class, probably in my entirety of high school. And so it kind of clicked to me in that moment that I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do sport management. Maybe I'll do something else. So I switched to marketing, and then I just kind of lost passion with school overall. And so that's when I took my break to join the military. And then when I moved back, I was like, okay, now that somebody else is paying for my degree, I think my parents will give me a little less slack for majoring in English, because unfortunately that was something I wanted to pursue. Like, okay, what if I did something in liberal arts? And my mom was like, well, how are you going to make money with that? And I think we've all heard that at some point or another. And so now that I was like, well, I know who at least is going to pay for it, which was nice. So I switched over to English, and honestly, my grades were improving. I just had better mental health after everything. And I think it was just because I was passionate about it, and I loved going to class and meeting my professors and hearing from other students of their perspectives in life. So that I got a taste of while I was a business major, but really truly like delved into. And yes, first love or first sight love, that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and it's amazing how many students come in with a perceived career that they want to major in, or where they want to work, and quickly find that there might be other passions, other things that invest them or engage them. So, and that's okay, right? We don't have to have every single piece of our life planned out, which can be stressful to some. So, Sophia, how about you?
Yeah, so I feel like my path was pretty similar to Kayla's. I also was fortunate enough to take some AP classes when I was in high school. And when I took AP literature and composition was really the one for me that was just intellectually unlike anything else I'd done before. And I'm a big believer in playing to your strengths. And that's really where I discovered that English was something I was really, really good at. I think something else that is worth mentioning is that I think it's safe to say for all of us that we aren't in this degree program just for the money. And I think it's okay to call the reason that we're here love. I think we've all had a moment or an encounter with literature or the written word, and we just fall in love with what that can do. And so that was really my experience in high school that kind of set me up for an English degree later on. When it came time to make that decision, it almost felt like there wasn't any other career or any other college path I could go down, because that really was just what spoke to me in such a powerful way.
Thank you for sharing, Sophia. And particularly in today's world, we want things quickly, and sometimes decisions. I love how you said that. Some of those classes you took in high school, right? That decision didn't come back until 7 years, 8 years later when you decided to major in English. So I love that. We just sometimes have to be patient too throughout that process. All right. So moving on to our next question, I'm going to start with Kayla here. What has been your greatest takeaway from receiving your degree in English, and maybe even talk more broadly about just your liberal arts education and how it's helped you in both maybe your career and even personal life?
yeah, so I would say professional wise, I think there's an aspect that the liberal arts and my English degree has given me that employers honestly do look for. Can you compose a document that is concise and people can understand no matter their background, especially working with legislators who are subject matter experts and have to be subject matter experts in a variety of things, because we deal with everything from wildlife management to health and human services to public safety or economic development. And if we're trying to advocate for something in our department, how can we make sure that the biggest and brightest minds here at my office can distill that information for a legislator to understand? And that's something like I loved my literature classes. They were a lot tougher on me. Same thing with critical theory. They built a lot of skills for me and trying to distill information and get the point of them. And so that's something that employers really do look for, and it's never hindered me at all. Like, it's always been a benefit. And just like the perspective that the liberal arts brings to a variety of topics is really important. So that kind of lens of whether it's, different communities, different cultures, or just how people think in certain times or eras is really important when, navigating law or navigating really anything. And so, yeah, I've only been thankful, because no matter what I do, whether it is in the nonprofit sector or here in state government, or if I want to go to the private sector, I feel prepared in whatever I do. And yeah, I'm just happier overall. I love being able to say I was an English major, and like my chief in my unit was an English major, and we bonded over that. And you never know who you're going to run into that is one, and it creates that little connection that I think is a cool bond.
Most every career is interdisciplinary. It's going to require to use skill sets from all areas, and I think liberal arts education does a great job of that. Sophia, how about you? What were your takeaways from your English degree and or any of your other degrees, and more broadly, liberal arts?
Yeah, I think specific to an English degree, I feel like I came away really with the ability to engage in really sustained long form thought about complex topics. and kind of to comprehend like a really broad overview of an idea, but also be able to really focus in on the details and do some really, really detailed close reading. And I feel like that has become more and more relevant in today's society as we are all parsing through information that we never thought we would be dealing with around COVID and everything else that's gone on in the last several years. Yeah, so I think an English degree is such a powerful path towards critical thinking. And I'm extremely grateful for that.
Thanks for sharing that, Sophia. Rachel, how about you? What were your takeaways from your English degree and more broadly liberal arts education?
I think I'm pretty much going to mimic what Sophia and Kayla said, but first I have to say, I'm so excited that you guys got so much out of your AP classes in high school, and that gives me so much life as a high school English teacher. I just love to hear that. So I think that the takeaways for me, as I said, are similar. One is on the academic side. So the way that English majors are able to read to comprehend and read to analyze and organize their thinking and absorb a lot of information and think through different lenses and then put all of that into writing and have rich discussions. All of those skills on the academic side lend themselves to anything, as we've been discussing. Those are going to be valuable in any career field. And then on the other side of that, there's the human element that I think being an English major really lends itself to. And that's our exposure to diverse voices and perspectives, whether we're getting that through literature or through the comments that our classmates are making in class. English majors are really able to listen to someone else's perspective and hear the evidence behind why they feel that way and not completely shut that down. I think that we are taught to accept that people have different worldviews, and that's okay. And that can even be beautiful. And that is something that I don't think is very common in today's society. So I'm really grateful that as I went through the English program in UCCS, I feel that my views were challenged and I was exposed to so many different perspectives that have ultimately shaped me into who I am as a human.
That's amazing, and that's powerful. And you know, those opportunities for us to engage as humans is what makes us human, and how we learn and move forward as a society. So I think there's a lot of connection there, both individually and then from a more societal global perspective. All right, as we go to our last preset question, and before I introduce this question, I just want to put a reminder to the students to go ahead and be thinking of questions you want to ask our awesome panel. And you can put those in the chat now while they're answering this last question. And I will watch those and be ready to ask our awesome panelists those questions. So don't be afraid to start putting those in now if you have those. So question 4, last question here. Do you have any recommendations for students that maybe aren't 100% sure about what they want to do with a degree in English or liberal arts education? Just give some of that maybe advice you would have gave yourself when you were exploring careers and degrees. So I'm going to start this one with Sophia if she feels ready.
Yeah, so I think one of the greatest things about an English degree that can also sometimes be one of the greatest challenges of an English degree is how flexible it is. An English degree can essentially get you wherever you want to go, but you have to know where you want to go for that to happen. And I think the best way to kind of figure out what you want is just to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible while you're still in school and kind of just see what sticks. So I know for me, it was really impactful to be part of the English major National Honor Society, Sigma Tau Delta. I think it's still Dr. Ginsburg who is sponsoring that. And that was just a really formative experience for me in kind of figuring out what I liked and what I didn't about academia. And I would also add, your professors are your friends. And I really benefited from having multiple conversations with multiple professors just around my future and my career and what options were out there. So definitely take advantage of that while you're still at UCCS.
Those extracurricular activities can be the things that really spur a career that you didn't expect, or the people that you meet that you end up being lifelong friends with. Rachel, how about you?
I would say that it is such an uncomfortable feeling to feel unsure and to be sitting in uncertainty. And I think that's something that we all experience at different times. So when I was going through my English major, I was very certain of what my future was going to consist of. I knew I was going to be a high school English teacher. But right now in my doctorate degree, I feel that same uncertainty, that I know that I want this degree and I know that it's going to provide me with a lot of opportunities, but I'm not really sure what doors are going to open and where I'm going to go with it. And that is really uncomfortable. We're kind of taught at a young age to figure out where we're going and go there. And our paths are not always very linear. Sometimes they're kind of windy. So I would encourage you to sit in that uncertainty and kind of enjoy the possibilities. And as English majors, we are able to consider a variety of different places that we could be applying these skills. And even if you somehow end up in some field that doesn't seem like it is related to English, you're actually going to be using your English skills even there, because you are going to be set apart by the way that you are able to critically think and to communicate. So wherever you go, you're going to use your English degree. And I think, like Sophia said, pulling on the advice from your professors and your advisors, all of that will only help you. And my door is certainly open if you ever have questions about the field of education.
That's perfect timing, Rachel. Actually, a question just came in the chat for you specifically, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it now. So the question is, thank you for your insight. Rachel, you said you did not do the professional year at UCCS to become a teacher. What program did you use? How did it work better for you as a non-traditional student?
Oh, I love that question. So yeah, I didn't even know that there was another option. I thought that the traditional program through student teaching and stuff was the only way to go. So I actually felt like my whole entire world was falling apart when I realized that I couldn't do that. And it was only when I went to my advisor, like sobbing my face off, feeling like I was never going to get to be a teacher, that I finally learned of the alternative licensure program at UCCS. So this is a program that you need to apply for after you have a bachelor's degree. You have to have a job as a teacher. And then in your first year of teaching, you get your teaching credentials and you go through your licensure process and you take classes and all of that. So it was really great for me because I already had a family to support. And the traditional student teaching situation is basically you're working full time in a sense, but you're not getting any income. And that was not going to work for me when I had 2 children at home. So with the alternative licensure program, I was able to be a real teacher right away, including getting a teacher's income while I was getting my license. So I was able to get all the benefits of getting a degree in English and then just jump right into being a teacher. You do have to be the right kind of human to just walk into a classroom of students and be like, yesterday I was not a teacher and I've never done this before. And today I'm a teacher and I'm about to do this. So you have to definitely be ready for that kind of challenge. But I think it worked out beautifully. And a lot of teaching is really learning by doing, and you don't know until you experience something. And the way that the education system is structured now is so team-based. So theoretically, whatever school you're placed at, you're going to have colleagues that you can rely on that can kind of guide you through that first year. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you for answering that. And Lane, who asked the question, please confirm in the chat for us that that helped you. And if there was anything she missed. She says thank you. That's awesome. And Rachel, a point I want to back up on your answer to the question that's on the slide there. We often tell students careers are jungle gyms, not ladders. And so I think that really validated kind of for me what your career was like. Kayla, how about you? Tell us, recommendations for students that may not be sure about a degree in English or liberal arts, and just kind of give some advice.
Yeah, I think both Sophia and Rachel made great points. I truly did not know what I wanted to do with my life coming to graduation day. And I think the beauty of the fellowship was we called it College 2.0. So you could take 2 years to kind of figure out, see more industries and kind of narrow down what you might want to do. And that really helped me, delaying that choice. And post fellowship, I'm still there. I love what I do. I love state government now, and I have this passion, and the people that I work with are all passionate because a lot of money in state government to be made. So it's really, really interesting, but it's not it could not be my forever job. I could go work private sector. I could go not work in policy at all. And I think I live in the discomfort. I live in the windy paths, and if you're okay with that and can embrace it, there's nothing wrong with that. I still am trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, and that's okay. But I love where I'm at now, and I feel prepared to stay here if I wanted to because of my degree. So if you have an internship that you're looking at, if you have, just want to grab somebody for coffee and be like, hey, what do you do for a living? Can you tell me more about it? How did you get there? Those are all great ways to kind of help shape that path if you're unsure. But yeah, I've embraced the suck every day, and it's been great for me.
Yeah, Kayla, the stats say that most people have 3 to 5 very distinct careers in their life. And so that validates that for me, for what you said and how you thought about that. Plus, I love how you just said, go just talk with people. Go ask them what they like about their jobs and careers. I joke with students that what do people love to talk about most? Themselves. So when you ask for that conversation, you're just asking for them to talk about themselves, which is fun and exciting. So all right, so we're going to go to the open Q&A now, and we do have one question that's come in already. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that, and then we'll build from there. So what kind of experiences or internships did you get into, or did you just apply for jobs straight out of graduation, even though you may not have had the required experiences a lot of jobs desire? So whoever feels most comfortable starting with this one, talking about, maybe internships they did during school, or putting themselves out there even without much experience as they apply for jobs.
I'm happy to go first. So this was also a reason why I left my sport management degree, was because a lot of the internships were unpaid, and that was just kind of a reality of my situation. I didn't grow up with money. I had to pay my way through college, and that was kind of also a motivating factor for why I joined the military. So I really only had the job experience that I had in college, and they were odd jobs. I worked at the art gallery on campus. I was a tour guide for 3 years. I nannied at one point. So I wouldn't say I had true professional experience going into anything, because I had to pay the bills at the end of the day. And so when I found the fellowship, I think they understood that if you're involved in clubs, if you're involved in extracurriculars, if you did do an internship, that was great. Or if you did have work experience, some people applied a few years out of college. They looked at that well-rounded individual and what would make a great cohort. And so what you individually brought into that was really great. And that's what appealed to me, is because it was truly an entry-level position, but it gave you the skills to kind of take on really anything afterward. And that's what I really appreciated about that. So I wouldn't be scared if you don't have, years of experience going into whatever job. I think as long as you can, build something while you're at school and you're networking and you're making connections, but you're also, doing well in class and participating in different ways like that, you'll find something afterward.
Yeah, how you translate your experiences and sell your experiences is really impactful. And not every experience needs to be a paid job. I love how you talked about getting involved and the other things that you did, right? So thanks for sharing. Rachel or Sophia, anything you want to add there?
I would just add, with the field of education, I didn't do any internships or anything. I did go observe some high school classrooms, and that was really wonderful for me. But what I would add is that even if you don't have a lot of experience, if you demonstrate a willingness to learn, your leadership is going to find that appealing, and they're going to want to invest in you. So when I was applying for teaching positions, I was up against candidates who had done student teaching or who did have teaching experience. And I was just like, hi, I'm an English major and I really want to do this. But because I was so clearly willing to take feedback and continue to learn and be coachable, they were willing to take a chance on me. And I think that's something that if you can express that in your interviews, that you understand that you don't have a lot of experience yet, but you're willing to do what it takes to get there, then you might be surprised by the opportunities that present themselves.
Yeah, and Rachel, so often students self-select out of even applying for those jobs because they'll say, well, I don't have enough experience. Well, Make the company tell you no is my way of telling students that you literally can't get the job if you don't apply and put your name in the hat and showcase, how you can sell yourself. I love that. Sophia, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, so for me, like Kayla, I was working multiple part-time jobs my entire way through college. And eventually one of those part-time jobs became my full-time job. And so I would just say, again, just kind of say yes to as many things as you can that come your way, and you never really know what's going to stick. But it's so much better to just try things. And you can always get out if it ends up not being a good fit, but it can end up taking you to your dream career. So yeah, just there are many opportunities out there that even if it's not your career, it can start out as kind of a part-time thing. And then you can build on it from there. So yeah, that worked really well for me.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Sophia. All right, what other questions do we have from our audience? This has been very engaging. And while that's coming through, I actually have a question for each for you. Can you share what's something you wish you would have done during your time at UCCS? Maybe some opportunity you missed or something you wish you would have taken advantage of. Regret can be a really powerful thing, actually, and it can be a really good tool to help us get better. So if anyone wants to share something they wish they would have done while they were in college, if anyone feels compelled to answer. And if nothing, that's okay.
So I think because I was a non-traditional student who already had a family and was already kind of established as a grown-up, I don't really feel like I regret anything. I did not do any of the community events and I did not participate in any clubs, but I wasn't in a time in my life where that's something that I really could add to my plate. But I think that if I had gone to college younger, before I had children and other responsibilities, I think that I would have regretted not taking those opportunities to get involved in all of the different clubs and all the things that we see happening on the lawn. I never did any of that. So I think in a different time, I might have had a regret, but I can't say that I have a regret based on where I am now. Sorry to mess up the question.
Not at all. I think that was a really powerful message.
I'll just throw my regret out there. I definitely regret not speaking up. I am a huge introvert. Being a tour guide tore that out of me. So my first couple of years in college, I really did not speak at all. And then when I got practice being a tour guide and talking in front of strangers all the time, it became a lot easier to talk in class with people who I was seeing every, Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. And so once I started doing that, I felt more comfortable in obtaining knowledge, learning knowledge, asking questions, and it made me appreciate my degree a lot more. And I wish I had done that, from day one. It was something that I always think about is, why didn't I speak up? I had a really cool thought about this book, and there's always that fear of looking stupid or not saying the right thing, but everyone is afraid of that. And so I wish I would have done that a bit more in class, because it made it a lot easier to kind of bond with people afterwards. So yeah, definitely my biggest regret for sure.
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is important, right? Because when do we grow the most is when we're uncomfortable and challenged and forced to really grow. So I love that you shared that. Sophia, anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I would say I had 3 really good years of college and 1 really hard year of college. In my final year, I faced some really significant academic burnout. There was a lot going on in my personal life as well. And because I kind of had been not addressing a lot of that for the previous 3 years, it all kind of came to a head in my final year. So I really regret not taking advantage of the services that UCCS offers in the Health and Wellness Center earlier in my college career. I think I could have just made my time more sustainable for myself and not ended up kind of finishing like this really fizzled out kind of person. yeah, so I made it through, but it kind of, the emotional impact of that final year was really significant. And I wish that I'd just done more to mitigate along the way.
Asking for help is one of the best skills I think people can obtain in a career, right? And in life. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's something you wish you would have done. Margie asks our next question, which is a great one. Do you find time now to read literature and participate in academic discussions? That's what Margie in particular enjoys most about being in higher education. So anyone want to share, that love for English and reading and literature? Is that something that's still, fuels your cup or fills your cup?
I could start. I think it's easy for me because my job is so literature based. So I do have a lot of that just in my professional life, but even before I found this role, I was still pretty intentional about seeking out fellow former English majors, and just had a really tight-knit group of friends, and it felt like we could just talk about literature together. I had a Toni Morrison book club with my best friend for a while, just completely for fun. So I do think that my English degree really kind of instilled that love in me. And once I graduated, it was easy to kind of carry that on and just make that really a priority in my life.
Thanks for sharing, Sophia. Rachel or Kayla?
I don't know, Rachel, if you want to go first.
Do you want me to go first?
I feel like I'm going to get boos and jeers for my answers, but yeah, you might want to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So similar to Sophia, my job is literature-based, teaching English. The level of discussion is slightly different when I'm discussing these texts with high school students, but it's fun to kind of teach them how to discuss literature in that way. I talk about literature as fun reading in comparison to the very academic reading that I need to do for my PhD. So I kind of differentiate between the two. And I feel that I'm currently in a stage of my life where I don't really get to do very much fun reading because of all of the academic reading that's kind of in my brain. So there will come a time where I get to really prioritize the fun reading again. I do try to do a little bit of fun reading, like over Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, but I used to do fun reading every single day. So I'm looking forward to when I'm done with my PhD and I can kind of pick that back up.
We go through different stages in our life around the things that we love to do outside of our work, even if work is literature and those types of things. I love that. Kayla, and if you don't want to share, Kayla, you don't have to.
No, Rachel's answer made me feel a little bit better. I was just going to say, I honestly finished my English degree with all of my literature classes in somehow one semester. So I was taking 3 literature classes at one time. And I think I cried a lot. And so I've only read one book for fun since, and it was If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, which is a perfect novel. I watched it or read it, then I watched the movie and cried, but this time tears of joy. And so, yeah, I really have not read for fun, especially now that when you're reading Colorado revised statutes all day, it gets a little tiring. So when I get home, I'm definitely putting on Netflix, and I feel there's like some guilt that creeps in when I'm hitting my remote, but one day I think I'll get back to reading for fun again.
No judgment. I love that. All right, well, we're getting down to the end here. Any final questions from our attendees, things that they are pondering or asking or want to ask our awesome panelists? And if our panelists feel comfortable, I'll have them put in their contact information if they want that out there. It's okay if they don't, but put that in the chat if you'd like to, so our awesome students can engage with you if you'd like. And I'm going to just quickly end our session here on just a few notes. So, of course, a couple of resources we want you to know about and take advantage of. First is, of course, the English website has a lot of great information, and they're always putting out events and things that they're doing. They also have a lot of great of the same content on social media. Handshake is the job and internship board that you all as students and alumni have access to. And At any one time, there is over 12 to 13,000 jobs and internships posted on Handshake. And what's cool about that is companies have selected UCCS as a school that they want to recruit at. So you can feel good that those are organizations recruiting you. And of course, we here in the Career Center are always here to support you in whatever way that you feel ready. So exploring careers, talking about getting ready to apply for those opportunities, whether they're related to your field or not, that is what we do here in the Career Center. So to finish us out, I so appreciate the time of Sophia, Rachel, and Kayla for them giving back to UCCS, and thank you for engaging with our students. And we hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. So thanks again for joining.